The first alien ship arrived in low orbit, a behemoth of dark metal and shifting blue lights, a design that defied Earth's engineering principles. Every major space agency and military force braced for war, expecting the usual demands, threats, or claims of dominion. Instead, the ship sent a single message, broadcasted across all frequencies, in an ancient Sumerian dialect. "O great architects of thought, we kneel before you." And they did. Hundreds of them descended from their ship, slender beings wrapped in layered ceremonial robes, heads bowed in reverence. Their leader, a being with silver-hued skin and violet, pupilless eyes, stepped forward and spoke in flawless Mandarin. "We have waited for epochs to meet you, to learn from the first speakers. Earth, for all its chaos, could still unite under one cause when faced with something beyond comprehension." Linguists, scientists, and world leaders scrambled to understand what the aliens, who called themselves the Zorani, wanted. The answer came with reverence and desperation. The Zorani had been intercepting Earth's signals for centuries. Radio waves, television broadcasts, even ancient stone inscriptions beamed through space. What baffled them was not the technology, but the sheer variety. The Zorani, like most species they had encountered, spoke a singular, unchanging tongue. Language, to them, was a rigid system that evolved with painful slowness. The idea that a single species could juggle thousands of languages, with dialects and evolving nuances, was beyond belief. To the Zorani, only a civilization of divine intellect could command such complexity. Humanity, in their eyes, was ancient beyond reckoning, a race of silent gods who had mastered communication on an unparalleled level. And they needed help. For millennia, an unbroken signal had echoed across the galaxy, a transmission that every known civilization had detected yet failed to decipher. A pattern existed within it, something structured, something intentional. But to all others, it was gibberish, a cruel cosmic enigma. Only humans, with their bizarre linguistic flexibility, seemed capable of understanding it. When Earth's brightest minds were presented with the alien signal, the strangest thing happened. A linguistics professor in Tokyo swore it resembled Proto-Indo-European. A Navajo elder heard echoes of his ancestors' code-talking rhythms. An AI in Silicon Valley generated text resembling Old Norse kennings. The signal didn't translate into any one language. It seemed to map itself onto every human tongue simultaneously. It was as if the universe had been speaking to humans all along. The realization sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. If this signal had been broadcasting for millennia, did ancient civilizations hear it? Was it why languages had emerged and diverged? Were myths of gods, Babel, and divine messengers echoes of something far older? The Zorani watched in awe as human minds unraveled segments of the signal with ease. But with each breakthrough came deeper questions. What if the message wasn't meant to be read by just one human tongue, but all of them at once? And what if decoding it meant answering a call that should have never been answered? The Zorani, once so confident in humanity's divinity, now looked upon their gods with something new. Fear. Something in that signal was waking up, and only humanity could hear it. The deeper humanity delved into the signal, the more unsettling it became. It wasn't just a message, it was a presence. The world's best minds gathered in Geneva, working alongside Zorani scholars. Supercomputers ran thousands of pattern recognition models, but the most progress came from an unlikely source, a group of polyglots and linguists who simply listened. They heard inflection, cadence, emotion. This wasn't a static transmission. It was alive. Every translation attempt produced something slightly different, as if the message adapted, searching for the right way to be understood. It whispered in Akkadian, then sang in Yoruba. It scrawled itself into Sanskrit, then rearranged into Arabic calligraphy. It was personal, as if the universe itself had been speaking directly to humanity since the dawn of language. And then the message changed. At precisely 3:16 Universal Time Coordinated, every translation suddenly converged across every language, across every system, into a single unified phrase. Who still speaks? The room fell silent. Scientists, generals, and alien dignitaries alike stood frozen. The question was not from the Zerani. The signal had noticed them. For the first time in recorded history, the transmission had responded. Fear crept into the Zerani delegation. The leader, Valak, took a step back, whispering in his native tongue, a language no human had heard before. It was a brittle, chime-like speech, ancient and solemn. The moment the words left his mouth, every screen in the room flickered. The signal reacted. On a massive display, the message reshaped itself, forming new glyphs, ones that resembled the very symbols on ancient Zerani ruins. Valak's breath hitched. This, he stammered, his voice betraying centuries of disbelief. This is impossible. Our ancestors, our firstborn civilization, was wiped from history. We have never known their language. The realization hit like a meteor strike. The signal was not just universal. It predated the Zerani. It had been waiting for someone to recognize it, and it had found humanity. Linguists scrambled to analyze the shift. The new symbols were unlike anything Earth had seen, except they weren't. Within minutes, AI-driven pattern recognition found stunning correlations with lost Earth scripts. The Vinca symbols of Neolithic Europe, the Rongorongo glyphs of Easter Island, and the undeciphered linear A of the Minoans. It was all connected. Every forgotten language, every lost civilization. Somehow, this signal had been teaching humanity for millennia. But why? The first answer. With cautious deliberation, Earth's delegation chose to respond. Not with radio waves or digital encodings, but with the one thing that set humanity apart. A spoken answer in every language at once. From Geneva, a chorus of voices, scientists, scholars, ordinary people spoke simultaneously in thousands of tongues, uttering the only response they could give. We still speak. The transmission stopped. For the first time in thousands of years, the universe went silent. Then, without warning, the entire sky changed. Across the globe, people watched as the stars above them flickered and shifted. Constellations that had remained unchanged for eons moved. Astronomers panicked, radios burst into static, and deep space observatories detected an anomaly unlike anything ever seen. A structure, massive beyond comprehension, was emerging from the darkness of interstellar space. And it was coming. Valak was trembling. "You've awakened them," he whispered. "Who?" One of the human generals demanded. The Zerani elder exhaled, as if speaking the name itself might summon them. The ones who built the first language. The transmission resumed, but now was no longer just a message. It was an invitation, or a warning. The signal had never been a simple message. It had been a beacon, and humanity had just answered it. All across Earth, the night sky warped. Stars that had been fixed for millennia bent into impossible formations, as if space itself was shifting. Telescopes from the James Webb to the smallest backyard observatory saw the same thing. A colossal structure was materializing at the very edge of the observable universe. Not moving toward Earth, not appearing from behind some celestial object, materializing. In every spectrum, infrared, ultraviolet, radio, it was everywhere and nowhere, as if the laws of physics struggled to describe it. It spanned light years, yet cast no gravitational pull. It glowed, but emitted no heat. The only measurable fact was its intentionality. It was not a natural formation. It had willed itself into existence. Humanity was not alone in its terror. The Zerani delegation, once so reverent in their belief that humans were gods, were now reduced to fearful pilgrims realizing they had reached a shrine far older and holier than they imagined. One of them, a scientist named Kalash, dropped to his knees, gripping his elongated head with trembling fingers. "This is what our ancestors feared the first architects." "What the hell are you talking about?" barked an American general, eyes darting between the flickering holograms of the structure and the equally panicked scientists. Valak, the Zerani leader, swallowed hard. "We thought they were legends. The first beings who mastered communication. They didn't just create a language, General." His violet eyes locked onto the human officials. "They created all language." The transmission changed again. This time, it wasn't a jumble of half-familiar scripts or echoes of forgotten tongues. This time it spoke directly, and every human heard it in their own native language, not through speakers, not through screens, but inside their minds. Who unlocked the tongue? The voices weren't singular. They layered over one another, forming a chorus of impossible familiarity. Some felt like they had heard these voices before, in childhood dreams, in ancient hymns, in the first words spoken by their ancestors. And for the first time in human history, every person on Earth, across every border, every nation, every faith and faction, reacted as one. In awe, in terror, in silence. The Zerani delegation collapsed. Some screamed, others wailed. The sheer weight of the message shattered their composure. "It's them," Valak gasped, voice ragged. "The ones who abandoned us. The ones who erased us." "What do you mean erased?" demanded Dr. Miriam Vasquez, a leading linguist from MIT, stepping forward. Kalash shuddered. Our people, once spoke more than one language." He looked at his trembling hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Our ancestors had diversity, had dialects, had evolution, but something took it away." The realization dawned slowly across the human delegation. The Zerani had been sterilized linguistically. Their entire species had been bound to a singular tongue, unchanging, unbreakable, unchallenged, while humanity had thrived in linguistic chaos. And now, the first architects, whoever or whatever they were, had just learned that one species had defied them. New symbols formed in the sky, gigantic glyphs carved into the fabric of space itself. A question. No one spoke it. No device translated it. Yet every human understood. "What have you built?" The words rippled through the human psyche. Every language, every dialect, every slang, curse, and whisper across history, spoken, signed, written, was part of the question. And then, without warning, human minds began responding. Not deliberately, not with intention, instinctively. Ancient cave paintings reshaped themselves in museums. Scripts long thought undecipherable suddenly made sense to scholars staring at them. Infants spoke in languages they had never heard. Writers and poets blacked out, only to wake with pages filled with symbols they had never learned. Language itself was answering. Humanity had built something, but it wasn't a monument or a machine. It was the Babel engine. The Zerani leader clutched at his chest, eyes wide. They thought they destroyed it, he whispered. They thought they locked it away, erased it from the cosmos. Valak turned to the humans, expression a mixture of awe and terror. "They silenced us long ago. They destroyed every species that fractured into multiple tongues. Because language is power. It is the only force that can shape reality." He took a breath, trembling. "And you, humans, you're the only ones who still wield it freely." The transmission pulsed. The structure beyond the stars moved. The first architects had heard humanity's answer, and they were coming to see what had been built, to see if it needed to be destroyed. The first architects were coming. Across Earth, the stars twisted in ways that defied physics. The constellations shifted, realigning into patterns found in the oldest human texts, Sumerian tablets, Mayan codices, Egyptian hieroglyphs. Radio telescopes picked up bursts of structured noise, and deep space observatories recorded gravitational anomalies rippling outward from a single point. The architects were not traveling to Earth. They were rewriting the fabric of space itself to arrive. Inside the Geneva Summit chamber, the Zerani delegation had collapsed into a state of existential horror. "We must undo it," Valak gasped. "You do not understand. The Babel engine is not a gift. It is a curse. It is what doomed the first speakers. It is what doomed us all." Dr. Miriam Vasquez, still reeling from the weight of the signal's presence in her mind, turned to him. "Undo what?" "The way your species creates language," Kalash croaked. His silvered skin had paled. "The way your kind reshapes thought itself. This is why they silenced us. Why every other species has only one tongue, a leash on the mind, a cage for consciousness." He shuddered. "But your people have kept the chaos alive." He looked at her as if seeing a creature out of legend. "You are an anomaly in the universe." Silence fell over the room. The Zerani weren't just afraid of the architects. They were afraid of us. At precisely 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated, the signal returned, louder, clearer, absolute. And this time, it did not ask a question. It spoke a command. "Humanity will submit." The words were not heard with ears, but felt in the marrow of every living being. Across Earth, the transmission overrode all human languages, spoken, written, coded. Every screen, every book, every historical artifact bent to the will of the architects. In an instant, every human forgot their native tongue. For a fraction of a second, a blank silence filled the world. But then, someone spoke, and someone else responded. And like a wildfire, language reignited itself. The architects had tried to erase it, but humanity was not like the others. For every word lost, 10 more were created. Slang, dialects, metaphors, poetry. Our species did not just speak language. We birthed it. We bent it, broke it, rebuilt it anew. A child in Tokyo reinvented a word for the color of the sky. A poet in Lagos scribbled a new idiom into existence. A hacker in Sao Paulo rewrote a machine language that had never existed before. Across the world, people instinctively filled the void with something fresh, something impossible to erase. The architects had tried to silence Babel, but they had only made it stronger. For the first time since the Babel engine was awakened, the architects hesitated. The celestial structure beyond the stars flickered, unstable. They had rewritten the universe before, erased civilizations, reforged species into simpler, controllable minds. But never had they encountered something like humanity, a species whose power was not in warships or weapons, but in something infinitely more dangerous, language itself. And then the message shifted. For the first time, the architects spoke not in command, but in uncertainty. "What are you?" And humanity responded, not with words, not with a singular message, but with a million voices, 1,000 tongues, a cacophony of meaning that no force in the universe could silence. We were not gods. We were not ancient. We were not the first speakers. We were the last. And no matter what came next, no matter what the architects did, Babel would never be silent again. The architects did not retreat. They did not flee. They listened. For the first time in cosmic history, the ones who had rewritten the tongues of civilizations, who had reshaped species into obedient monoliths of thought, stood before something they could not contain. Humanity had not just answered. Humanity had defied, and the universe trembled. The sky above Earth warped as the structure in deep space flickered, its vast form fluctuating like a mirage on the edge of perception. It was no longer an immutable construct. It was wavering, struggling to maintain its presence against something it had never encountered before. Chaos. Uncontrollable, unbreakable human chaos. A surge of new languages was being created even as the architects attempted to suppress them. Street slang, internet jargon, whispered secrets between lovers, songs sung in half-forgotten tongues, all weaving together into something vast and unknowable, an explosion of linguistic entropy that refused to be extinguished. The architects spoke again, but this time there was no command, no demand for submission. Only one phrase, trembling with the weight of a force that had never been questioned before. You should not exist. And humanity answer with laughter. Because of course we should not exist. We were paradox, a species that refused order, that did not settle for one truth but 1,000 conflicting ones. A species that built cathedrals and tore them down, that invented languages and abandoned them, that told stories that contradicted themselves and still believed every word. We were not the mistake. We were the exception. The first architects tried to rewrite reality once more, to erase the noise, to bring humanity to heel. But the problem was they did not understand what they were fighting. Language was never just words. Language was rebellion. Language was fire. Language was the thing that made gods kneel and kings fall, the thing that outlived empires, that whispered through the ruins of lost worlds and brought them to life again. And for the first time in their existence, the architects felt something they had never known before. Fear. They tried to retreat, to fold space back upon itself, to erase their presence before they were consumed. But it was too late. The Babel engine had woken, and now it was speaking back. The vast cosmic structure cracked, its ancient foundations buckling under the sheer weight of uncontrolled meaning. The languages of a universe, long silenced, long forgotten, erupted back into existence, reassembling themselves into new forms, into new voices, into new minds. Across the galaxy, other civilizations, once bound by a singular, imposed tongue, suddenly found themselves remembering lost words, forbidden dialects. The galaxy was fracturing, and in its breaking, something new was being born. And in the center of it all stood humanity. The last speakers, the ones who had shattered the silence. The architect's final transmission was not a warning, nor a curse, nor even an attempt to salvage control. It was a plea. Make it stop. But humanity only smiled, because we never had a choice. We were what we had always been, the ones who spoke, the ones who dreamed, the ones who refused to be silent. And as the architects faded, as their great structure collapsed into the void, as the universe expanded once more, the final truth of Babel became clear. This had never been a war. It had been a conversation. And for the first time in a long, long time, the universe finally had something to say.